Hi everybody, I'm Blitz and welcome. I'm excited today that we're going to be starting our playthrough of A Most Fearful Sacrifice from Flying Pig Games and designed by Herman Lutman. We're going to play this scenario, a slaughter pen, which is the introductory scenario. It's a smaller scenario, but it's going to allow us to look at almost everything the game has to offer and dig really deep into the action. This scenario covers the action on July 2nd, the afternoon, with the Confederate attack on Little Round Top and Big Round Top. Can the Confederates take the two Round Tops, or will the Union forces hold? Let's jump in and get started. Let's start out with an overview of the battle. We're looking at our Union forces here in blue, Confederate forces in the kind of amber. And we're bounded here by a relatively a border here that constrains the action to basically a fight for these two hills, Little Round Top right here and Big Round Top right here. And this sits to the south of Gettysburg. North is to the top of the screen. And we are a good ways to the south of Gettysburg right now. The action is going to take place on July 2nd, and the battle starts at 4 o'clock in the afternoon with the sun kind of slowly setting to the west on this long summer day at Gettysburg. Now, the battle in essence is relatively simple. We've got the victory point hexes here marked in the middle of the map. Union forces control these at the beginning, and it's a battle for two hills really. The Confederate forces are trying to take Big Round Top here, and I'm going to pull these off because they're so obvious, I don't think we need them, and then trying to take Little Round Top here. There are 3 victory point hexes, the 2 peaks here on Little Round Top and the 1 on Big Round Top. Whichever side controls more of these, so 2 of the 3, wins the battle. And this is only a 3-hour battle. So the South has to really put the onus of action is on them. They've got to come up this steep hillside here, take Big Round Top, come down in here through this draw, crest that top here, and then fight and gain control of Little Round Top here. So they've got to do all that in 3 hours, and you can notice in here there's rocks and trees. This is really tough terrain with steep climbs all the way around. So lots of altitude shifts and very dense, woody, rough terrain fighting that's going to go on here. Now, let's talk a little bit too about a strategy in the battle here. We can see there are 4 Union units here on the battlefield already, and these are actually split up over 2 divisions. We'll talk about that momentarily. And you might think, well, the odds are 4-3 in favor of the Union. That's tough order for the Confederate forces. But if we look here, Ward's unit right here is only got a strength point of 3, and then Ward's sharpshooters down here has a strength point of 2, whereas the Confederate forces are 8, 3, and 9. So larger forces, more firepower, stronger forces coming at them. These 2 Union units right here are actually vastly outnumbered and vastly overpowered. So for the Confederates, the pathway is clear. They've got to push up here over Round Top as quickly as they can, get to Little Round Top after crossing and taking Big Round Top. So they've got to act fast and put the attack on. The Union forces likewise are going to be fighting a fighting withdrawal at least until the action gets over here to Little Round Top. And one of the first decisions they've got to make is whether to pull Ward's troops back here, Ward's brigade back here, or try to have them delay the Southern forces as they try to take Big Round Top. But that'll all come forward as we move forward into the action here. Last thing I want to mention, this scenario is called a slaughter pen. It is the first scenario in the game out of 15. And even though it is a small scenario with a relatively limited number of units, I think it's going to show almost all of the gameplay features. And by playing a small scenario like this, we'll really be able to take this step by step and walk through all of the turns and all of their detail. So I think we'll get a good sense for how the game is going to play and a good sense for the actions. And this in and itself is a really fun scenario. And it's one of my points when I've seen some comments online, people saying, well, I don't know if I want to get the game because I don't have room for the 2 big maps. 9 of the 15 scenarios only occur on 1 map, and there is a ton of gameplay even in these very, very small, and this very rarely the smallest of scenarios here. So with that in mind, it's time for us to get started. We're going to kind of walk through the sequence of play. We're going to start out here with the 4 o'clock turn, and let's talk a little bit first. The first action that we have to do is designate our kind of divisional activations for the turn. So let's take a look at the Union and Confederate forces and see what's going to happen with that. Before we jump over and take a look at the command display, though, let's talk a little bit about how the forces are organized. All of the Confederate forces are in Longstreet's 1st Corps and all part of Hood's division. So there's only 1 divisional activation for the Confederate forces, which is going to make it relatively simple for them. The Union forces, however, actually have 3 divisional activations. Birney's division here, Ward's brigade is in Birney's division. And then Vincent's brigade up here is in Barnes' division. And then off to the east, we can see here, these are part of Eyre's division, and they are 2 brigades, actually some artillery that'll be coming in, and then another infantry unit that'll be coming in. And these will come in an hour as well. The Confederates are going to have some reinforcements that are going to come in at 5 o'clock too. But the Union forces are actually going to have to determine 3 different divisional activations as this battle plays out. So let's go take a look at the Union divisional activation card. In this game, at the very first thing you do and the part of a turn is decide how you're going to activate your divisions. And this right here is divisional priority 1, and this is divisional priority 2. It's more likely divisional priority 1 is going to get activated, and we're going to make that Birney, and Birney are basically the troops very close to the Confederate forces. They are in Ward's brigade there, and so we want them to activate, we want them to have a priority, although the way we're going to work this out, it's both divisions are going to get activated, so it's really not going to matter too much. But we're going to have Birney in divisional priority 1 and then Barnes in divisional priority 2. Eyre's division isn't here yet, so we're going to bring that card in later. Let's go take a look at the Confederates. Super simple for Longstreet's. Hood's division is the only division here, so they're going to be in divisional priority 1 when they have a corps activation. This will be the division that gets activated, and we'll see how all this works as we start to play out a little bit. That's the first part of our first turn, and now we've got to go build up our event deck for the turn. So once each side has set their divisional activation priorities for the turn, the next step is to build up the event deck. And basically what happens is each of these events are going to allow different sides to take actions in the game, but there are rules for how we build up this deck, and then they get all shuffled together, and then one at a time we're going to be flipping over these cards to see which event triggers. Now, we have a Fog of War card. There are certain cards that are mandatory. The Fog of War card is mandatory for this scenario, as well as Longstreet's corps activation. So when we pull out this corps activation, the Longstreet's Hood's division is going to activate. Likewise, when we pull out Sickles' corps activation for the Union forces, one of those 2 divisions are going to activate for Sickles. Most likely, divisional priority 1 is going to activate. So we've got these 3 cards that are automatically in the deck. Now, the special rules for this scenario then talk about there are 15 event cards for each side. And in this particular scenario, we're going to use a choice metric, a choice mechanic, and then a random metric to pick 4 of the event cards for each side, and they're going to get blended into this event deck. So I've gone through now, and through the Confederate deck, I've picked 2 events that I think are going to benefit the Confederates here. One is Fast Courier, which allows to activate a division that has not yet been activated this turn. Now, even though there's only 1 Confederate division in this battle, I want that if this card comes up first, the Confederates can go first, and going first I think would be a huge advantage. So we're going to have this card be in the deck. And then Rebel Yell, we'll talk about this when we pull it up. This allows us to attack and assault at much greater likelihood. It's kind of an all-out attack event. So we want these 2 events in the deck to kind of stack the odds in our favor offensively. Likewise, here, the ones we're picking here, we're also picking the Fast Courier event for the Union forces, because this will allow us to activate for sure both divisions in the turn, because one division we know is probably going to get activated here, and we can activate the other one with this card here. That'll allow us to move all our forces in this first hour here, which is good. And then right here, this one is going to allow us to kind of, it's a hold, it's hurrah. It's going to really allow us to take some casualties and sustain them better. So I think that might be a good one for the Union forces to have in here. It's kind of a defensive resiliency event, so we want to put those in. So these four events, 2 Union and 2 Confederate, are going to go in. These 3, and then we're going to pick randomly 2 cards from the remaining 13 cards for each deck. I'm going to put all these together, shuffle them all up, and then we're going to have our event deck built for the first hour. So we've built our event deck here that's going to control the card draw phase of the turn. Before we get to that, there is a preliminary bombardment phase where artillery can fire. And there are some rules that govern that. We haven't really talked about that. There's no artillery on the map right now, so we're going to skip that phase. In the second hour, the Union artillery should probably show up if all goes well for them. So we'll start to see that in action in the next hour. But for right now, there are no artillery units on the board, so we're going to go right to the card draw phase. We have an 11 card deck. We're going to flip these cards over one at a time and act on them as we work our way through the turn. Now, whoever has the initiative, whichever side acts slightly faster than the other side here, could have a big advantage in this round. Let's see what pops up for our first event. This is good for the Confederates. You recall that we put in this fast courier card here because we wanted to increase the likelihood as the Confederates that we can go first. And we can. This says activate any one divisional corps that has not yet been activated on this turn. Roll 1 die on the chosen division's command table, but deduct 1 from that die roll. We are going to do this rather than the default event. So let's go over and take a look at our divisional activation for Longstreet's Corps. So here is Longstreet's divisional activation, and the rules say that card says we have to subtract 1 from this die roll. So let's see what we get here. We get a 3. 3 minus 1 is a 2. We can activate the division group plus 1 hex of Henry's artillery. We don't have any artillery, so we'll be able to activate the divisional group here. Now, division group means that we can activate all the brigades in this division. However, we have to give them all the same order. So let's take a look and see how this plays out. Let's zero in here on Big Round Top, and we've got our Confederate forces. Now, the divisional group means that we have to give the same order to both of these 2 brigades, Law's brigade and Robertson's brigade. And then we're going to have them all together walk through each step in this process. And the order for the Confederate forces is simple: attack. And the attack action consists of 3 parts. It's going to be a fire combat phase, so we're going to have the Confederate forces fire first, then we're going to have them move, and under an attack order they all have a movement of 5 movement points, and then we're going to have an assault. And it's going to be really simple. We've got the force here as the Confederate forces. We are going to start our attack. Time is pressing. We want to see if we can push these units back and make ground. So at fire combat phase, Robertson here actually has his hex sides block the line of sight. So this high altitude forested hex here, these both Ward and Robertson sweeper units here are at the same altitude. However, the line of sight is blocked here for Robertson, so he cannot issue fire combat. However, Law's brigades, both of these units can. Now, we could have the option of both of these units combining because they're next to each other, but because Law's combat strength here is 9 and it's very close to the maximum, we're actually going to fire twice. So we're going to start here with the lesser of these units. Actually, we're going to start with the greater, with Law's larger unit here. We're going to start here. They're going to open fire on Ward, and then Law down here is going to open fire on Ward, and the battle is going to start with a flourish of action here. So let's calculate Law's initial fire here on Ward's sharpshooters. Combat strength is 9, so that's going to give us our strength points for our initial column. But we have to calculate column shifts, either up or down, increasing more effective, indicating more effective or less effective fire depending upon the circumstances. Here's a look now at the fire combat column shifts, and there's a lot of them, but there's only one that applies to us right here, which is that the target is in woods, rocky woods, or Devil's Den. This is rocky wood, so it's good cover for Ward's troops here, which means if we look at this chart, it's actually -1. It's going to shift our column attack from the 8 or 9 column down to the 6 or 7 column. None of the other things impact this combat, so it's relatively straightforward. So now we're going to go to the combat result table, and we're going to roll 3 dice. We're going to get a red die, which stands alone, and then the black die and the white die are read as a 2-digit number, with the black die going first, and we're going to look at the result on this 6 or 7 column to determine what kind of a fire combat cohesion test the defender must go through. So Law's brigade opens fire, 36 with a 4. So if we look across here on 36 on the 6 and 7 column, we see that's an easy cohesion check. And the red die is a 4, so now we go to the combat cohesion test. And we're going to add the number, the red die, 4, we're going to add that to Ward's cohesion rating. Now you might think it's a 4, but because there's nothing adjacent, no other unit from the same brigade adjacent to Ward, they're feeling isolated, and that causes their cohesion rating to go down. So their cohesion rating falls by 1, it's below the stated 4, it's down to a 3. We're going to take that 4, we take this 3 and then add the 4 to it, which gives us a 7. That's your cohesion test score here. And we're going to go across on the easy check there, and we see that there is no effect. So Law's troops open fire on Ward's troops, but they hold their ground and rather resolutely stand fast. Now there's still the assault phase coming up. This is kind of the preliminary fire prior to the assault. So things can still go south for Ward's forces here, but it's a good start for Ward, who have held resolutely to this initial fire. Now we're going to have Law's weaker brigade here open fire too. Much the same way, we have a combat strength of 3, so they're going to be using that column there. It's -1 column because they're in that rocky woods hex, so we're going to use the 2 column of the terrain, and we are going to roll again. So the second half of Law's brigade opens fire. They get a 54 with a 6. So on column 2, a 54 is another easy cohesion test. Actually, some good shooting here with relatively less firepower. They've put on an easy cohesion test. Now, we know that Ward's cohesion rating is a 3, and they rolled a 6, which gives us a 9. That's a strong result here. The higher the numbers with this red and cohesion combination, the better the defender does. So we can see one again on this Fire Combat Cohesion Test result. A 9 is no effect. So the Confederate forces open fire on Ward's troops. Ward's troops hold fast. Nothing changes. Ward's brigade, the sharpshooters, resolutely hold their ground. So that takes us through the fire combat phase. So now we're going to come to the movement part, the movement phase here. We're going to have Law's brigade here do something a little bit clever, because this is the major force that's assaulting here right now, and they have to assault uphill, which is going to give Ward's sharpshooters a defensive advantage here. So instead, we're going to have Law's troops climb this steep incline. They're going to disengage, then climb the steep incline. There's a minimum movement rule of 1 hex. They have enough movement to do this anyway, but they can always move 1 hex, and we don't have to worry about calculating the movement cost there. Now, because Ward's brigade is already engaged with Law's brigade here, Ward's brigade can't fire defensively on this one. Likewise, now we have the issue, if we attack here, it's going to be good for Law because they're at the same altitude, but because they're not next to another unit of the same brigade, they're going to have their cohesion rating drop. So we're going to have this unit, Law's brigade, do the exact same thing. They're going to slide down here and be next to, adjacent to Law, so now they keep their cohesion together. We're going to have Law's forces assault straight across here and avoid that altitude penalty there. So Law's troops are positioned now for their assault. Likewise, Robertson is going to come here. They're going to climb this rocky woods here and try to attack downhill, going into Ward's position here in this rocky ground here near the Valley of Death, appropriately named little valley down in here. So Robertson's forts are going to assault here. Now let's think about what we want to do with Law's assault here. Oh, sorry, we have one thing to do before that. Robertson's troop engaged with Ward's troop. Ward's troop is going to fire defensively at Robertson's forces here. So relatively straightforward, the same type of attack we've seen with the fire combat over here. Ward's brigade has a unit here, has a fire strength combat rating of 3, and then they're firing into rocky woods here, uphill a little bit, but that doesn't matter. So they get a 1 column shift. It's just firing now at a 2. You know, we might have them actually hold, because one of the nasty effects of, we're going to do it. Sometimes you can get return fire, and that can be worse than firing the first time, and at these low odds, but we're going to be brave. We're going to have the Union fire back here. So firing on a roll of 2, we get a 46 and a 4. 46 just misses, causes no effect. A 4 and a 4 gives us an 8. And that is no effect on the Fire Combat Cohesion Test. It just missed into firefight where they could have returned fire. So no effect as Ward fires on Robertson's troops as they advance closer for the assault. And now we slide into the assault phase. Both sides have to designate their attacks here. So now it's time for us to launch our assaults. Law's brigade is going to assault Ward's brigade right here. This one here. We're going to hold this one off, even though it could lend support to it. And we'll talk about why in a second. It doesn't really matter, because the Union are going to do something a little bit clever here as well. Robertson's troop is going to launch an assault on Ward's forces right here, coming down the hill into the Valley of Death. Let's resolve Law and Ward over here. Now, this is a combat strength of 9 against a combat strength of 2. And what happens with close assault is hypothesis, these combat strengths are really kind of one of the bigger determining factors in the results. But this SS designates sharpshooters, and sharpshooters have a special feature that allows them to disengage by moving away 2 hexes before close combat happens. So at greater than 4-to-1 odds, this would be disastrous for the sharpshooters to try to hold this ground right now. And I think as the Union player, we're going to concede big round top and make our play for little round top. We've already slowed the Confederates down a little bit here. We're going to have to move Ward away, and it has to go 2 hexes. So we're going to have them go 1 to increase the distance, and then our only other movement here really is 2 to increase the distance this way. So they've moved across this edge and then down the other side of the hill, conceding big round top. Now, Law's troops here, this unit here, can actually take advantage of that and push forward into this space as part of a breakthrough, and they will do that. So that's our first assault right here. Now we go to Robertson against Ward, and this one, Ward's forces cannot disengage into the night, so this is going to be a battle. So now let's calculate our assault combat down here. Basically, we're going to determine a strength factor for each side. We're going to roll dice for each side, and then we're going to index those 2 numbers to get a final result. We'll see how it works here as we go through. First, let's calculate the Confederate attack here. They have a combat rating, a strength of 8, and then we have to walk through these assault combat column shifts. The one that applies in the shift 1 column to the left is attacking into the Rocky Hex. So the Valley of Death is a rocky valley down there. So that's 1 shift left from our 8 column at the moment. None of the other ones in this left side apply, but if we go to the shift 1 column right, it's for each cohesion rating differential between the 2 highest strength point units. So the cohesion rating of the Confederate unit is a 5, but it doesn't have anybody next to it, so it's a 4 from the same brigade. Same thing happens here. This is a 3 down to a 2. So it's a 2 cohesion rating difference. So that's going to shift the result 2 columns to the right for the Confederates right now when they roll. Because it was 1 left, now we are 1 column right. There's nothing else that applies until we get down to the at least 2-to-1 odds in strength point advantage. Because we do have that. 8 to 3 gives us a 2-to-1 result, and it's not 3-to-1, which would be 3 column shift. So we're going to shift 1 column to the right so far, and now 2 columns more to the right from this 8 column. So Robert's force coming with a lot of force. We're going to start on the 8 column and then shift 3 columns to the right for our final result. Let's roll for this. For the assault combat, you just roll the white and black die. Again, remember, you don't roll the red. We get a 31, which is on the lower side here. So 1, 2, 3, 31. 31 gives us a tough cohesion result. That's a good result for the Confederates. It's going to be tough for the Union force to withstand this. Let's calculate Ward's result right now. So now let's calculate Ward's value. He starts out with a combat value rating of 3. And if we look at the assault combat column shifts, none of them apply. All of the defender ones there, they're tacked up slope. That's not the case. We already calculated the cohesion result, the cohesion rating difference and the odds difference. That only applies to the side with the greater advantage there. And none of the altitude ones apply here. So it's going to be a straight up roll on a 3 here. Let's see how Ward's brigade can do. 24, that's not promising on a 3. Is no effect. Okay, so we have a tough test against no effect, and what we do now is we cross-index these on the assault combat results matrix, and we look at the attacker result is T for tough, the defender is no effect, we get D is shaken plus skedaddle 2. So Ward's forces are going to get a shaken marker, which reduces your strength points by 1 and your cohesion rating by 1. And we can just slide it under here to kind of have it stick out on the corner to make it nice and clean. And then it's got a skedaddle 2 hexes, which means these are kind of strongly dictated which way it has to go. The Union forces have to go east and increase the distance where they can. So we are going to have them go back 1 here and then 1 here, pushing us to the east away from the unit that attacked. So Ward's forces here, the nice thing about that is they're now next to each other, so they're a little bit actually more kind of cohesively joined here. Robertson forces are going to move into the Valley of Death and take advantage of that kind of ground that they've given up by the Union forces. So our assault phase is over. So we are only into our first, we're the first flurry of action Confederate forces pushing the Union forces back from Big Round Top. We'll have to come through here to kind of take control of this. Ward's forces already pushed back. They're shaken and they have suffered some casualties now. However, they have joined forces here and they are nicely positioned right in front of the crest of Little Round Top here, perhaps to buffer more Confederate advances. So we are done with the first activation card for the Confederates. Not all of them will be this long or this involved and complex, but it's a good start for the Confederate forces. Let's come over now and flip over our second card of 11 in this turn. Oh, Sickles Corps activates. Okay, so we are going to see whether it's Barnes or Bernie that activates here. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll one die and get a result here to see which one of these activations takes place. So let's roll a black die here. We get a 6. Division priority 1 plus Randolph's artillery, which in this case is marked, but they're not here. So it's division priority 1, which makes sense. That's Bernie's division. So that's our Ward's forces that just got attacked. So that will be helpful. Let's go see how this activation plays out, though. So we're going to roll now on Sickles. We're going to roll here on Bernie's divisional card. Let's see what happens. We get a 4. Which is 1 brigade, which is fine because all they have is 1 brigade, which is Ward's brigade. So let's figure out what we want to do with the Union forces here. So we're going to give Ward's unit here a defend order. This will allow us to rally this unit to get them back up to full strength here and regroup their beaten up senses here from Robertson's attack. We have a minimum move. We could do fire combat. Now technically this could fire at long range down here, but the odds are really low, and I think the odds are actually probably greater that Robertson returns fire and does more damage. So we're going to hold on the defensive fire here. This unit has the line of sight blocked by this hex here. So Ward this, and this is another weak fire. So at 2 hexes away, at long range fire like this, I don't think it's worth it. We're going to skip it for now. We are going to have, each unit can do a minimum move. We're going to have the sharpshooters pull over here in this draw, figuring that Law's troops are going to come this way. We're going to have Ward's troops actually stay right where they are for the movement phase. That ends that defensive part, but it ends now with a rally option if you're given a defensive order. And as long as a unit isn't next adjacent to an enemy unit, we can remove its shaken status. So after all that offensive firepower they took in that battle they took out, they regroup mentally, get their act back together. They're on the crest of Little Round, just below the crest of Little Round Top. The Confederate forces are coming, but Ward's brigade has regained, and now they are also adjacent, which ranks their cohesion rating. They're feeling strong because their partners are next door. We've got brothers in arms right close by, and Ward's brigade is in a little better shape now. So good recovery, I think, by the Union forces. Let's go now to our third card. Fast Courier, play immediately. Activate any 1 division for a corps that has not yet been activated. Roll 1 die on the division's command table, but deduct 1 from that roll. This is why we picked this roll, because we've activated Bernie's brigade, we've activated Bernie's division, but we haven't activated Barnes' division, so we can activate them, and that's why we put this card in here. That's going to allow us to get Barnes' division up on top of Little Round Top and set up our defensive positioning a little bit better here. So let's go do that now. So Barnes' division is the one we're going to activate. We do have to subtract 1 by the die roll on this. Now hopefully they don't get a 1 or a 2, because that would mean they can't activate without any orders. They get a 5, which means a 4, 1 brigade, which is good. So we can activate Barnes' brigade here. We can activate Vincent's brigade. Sorry. So what do we do with Vincent's brigade? Now, one of the things I want to be a little bit careful of here is that if Ward's brigade here has a high likelihood of getting routed and getting pushed back, we want to make sure we don't have them rout through our troops if we can. Might be hard to do that, but because you can create this kind of cascading effect of catastrophe, if you would. But I think we have to risk it, and hopefully maybe that we can adjust these troops a little bit to get a little bit better of a line along this crest up here. But for the time being, we're going to have Vincent's brigade here do a maneuver order, which gives us 8 movement points, which is plenty. We could be aggressive and push down in here, but I'm afraid then that Robertson's troops can slide past this. We've got Law's troops coming in over here pretty soon too, in the next hour. So we're going to get hit from the west here too by the Confederates. So let's have Vincent's brigade make this steep climb uphill. It's +2 to go up this hill. It's 2 to go into the Rocky. That's 4. They have a movement of 8 with maneuver. We're gonna have Vincent's other brigade come down the pathway here, which is a 1 down the pathway, then 2, and then down the pathway up in here, get up on the hill, which is 3. Even if it's not, they have enough movement for 5 to get up. But I think the lane going across the hexside indicates you get lane movement there. So Vincent's brigade is gonna take positions right on the crest of Little Round Top. The Union defensive position is starting to take shape as this 4 o'clock hour moves along. Let's see what the fates have in store next. Rebel Yell. So Rebel Yell gives us another opportunity here for the Confederates to push the advantage. This allows us basically to move any unit that is 1 hex away from a Union unit and launch an assault at much greater odds. So this is kind of a ferocious Confederate attack here, and we are actually going to do this. We're going to pick a hex containing at least 1 rebel infantry unit, which is going to be, let's take a look over here. This works out perfectly for Robertson's forces down here in the Valley of Death. We're going to have them activate. Now what it says is we move 1 hex and then we have to assault. So we're going to move 1 hex and they are going to assault again after the newly regrouped Ward's brigade here that they've just kind of had a fierce exchange with earlier in this hour. Now they get some bonuses. They get +1 to their cohesion rating, which is going to give them better odds in this attack, and they get a 2-column shift on the combat results table. However, I do think first that we have to resolve defensive fire for the Union forces. So Ward's unit's going to open up with defensive fire. Their combat strength is 3. If we look at the fire column shifts, we can see that nothing applies here. The rocky terrain actually doesn't gain a defensive bonus for this fire. So it's a straight up fire on the 3 column here. Ward's units could use a good result to thwart this assault here. We get a 34 and then a 3. So on the 3 column, a 34 is no effect. A 3 plus this unit is a 4, but it gets 1 on its cohesion rating is a 5. 3 plus 5 is 8, and 8 is no effect. There is no return fire here. So just barely missed that. They almost got fired back on. Now Robertson's troop can do the assault here. So once again, Robertson's brigade attacking Ward's brigade, close combat, trying to push the Union forces off of Little Round Top here early in the battle. So with all the bonuses that Roberts gets on this assault combat shifts, it gets 5-column shift to the right from his 8, which puts him way over on the extreme edge of the combat results table. Let's see what kind of a result Roberts is going to get. Things looking grim here for Ward. They get a 24, which is a relatively low number here. All things considered, that gives us a tough cohesion test here for the Ward's troops. Not as bad as it could have been. It could have been critical with some of the odds in there too. So massive force hitting Ward's forces here. Now, to Ward's advantage, their combat strength is 3, but Robertson is attacking up a steep slope, so that's going to give them a 2-column shift to the right. So they're actually going to be on the 5 column here. Let's see if Ward can hold here. Same exact roll, 24. Oh, that's bad. 5, no effect. So we have a tough result against no effect. If we cross-index those, we get shaken and skedaddle 2, which is exactly what we had the last time this is. So Robertson forces continuing to just put the hurt on Ward's brigade here. So they are once again going to be shaken, and they have to skedaddle 2 hexes, which means they have to go straight east and increase the distance here. That pushes them here. Now Robertson's force has an interesting choice here. They can do a breakthrough and do 1 more assault, which might actually make the most sense for us to do. But do we want them alone right here under the shadow of Vincent's troops? Let us ponder. In the heat of command, Robertson decides that the Rebel Yell force, this bonus from the Rebel Yell sticks with them through this breakthrough move. So we're going to have Robertson here try to be a hero. They're going to actually assault Little Round Top. Because the Rebel Yell could be so powerful, they're going to push up the slope here. They can see Vincent's forces on the top here. Because it's a breakthrough move, there's no defensive fire. That gives them an advantage as well. And they are going to turn north and head straight for Vincent's forces at the top of the hill. This could be an epic heroic charge that could tilt the entire battle in the Confederate forces' favor here. Let's see what happens. Robertson moving uphill. We get an assault on the top of Little Round Top here. Let's calculate the odds here. Quickly, things are shifting in the Confederate favor here. This is a fairly even battle. Robertson's forces here with an attack strength of 8 get a 3-column shift to the right. Vincent's forces, because of the altitude difference, they get a 2-column shift to the right. So basically, essentially almost the same, a slight edge to the Confederates here. Let's see how this combat result plays out. Robertson's forces with a heroic charge on Little Round Top, a huge 54. 1, 2, 3, a 54 is a critical cohesion test. Oh, that's massive for Robertson's forces as they scramble up the hill. Vincent's forces here, likewise trying to defend. They get a 35, which gives them a tough cohesion test. Critical against a tough. Defender is shaken and skedaddles 1. They have pushed them off the top of the hill, and Vincent is shaken. Union forces here in disarray early in the 4 o'clock hour here. Now I think Robertson's forces can advance. Let me just double check. To clarify my point, yes, Robertson's force has done their 1 breakthrough, so they cannot advance again on this second hex here. But still, huge advantage now for the Confederates who have put this Little Round Top in question early on in this 4 o'clock hour. Union forces struggling to hold their ground. A heroic charge by Robertson. Let's move on to our next event here. The colonel is down. Now this event simulates, I think, leadership casualties, can further shake a unit. This could actually work really well for the Confederate forces. Basically, we pick any one Union unit, and if the die roll is equal or less than the cohesion rating, there's no effect. If it's greater than the cohesion rating, we apply a shaken result to that unit. I have just the unit that we want to put this on. This could turn the battle for the Confederates. Right here. We want to apply the colonel is down to Vincent's unit right here. Its cohesion is a stated 3. It's got support because there's someone next to it, but it's got a shaken result, so it drops down to a 2. So to avoid taking another shaken result, which would make it battle worn, Vincent's brigade here has to roll a 2 or less. Oh, they roll a 1 and they withhold. Interesting, historically enough, I think Vincent himself was mortally wounded in this battle on this day, and that card would have simulated that, further breaking this unit here. But Vincent's lads hold heroically, even though Vincent is down. They maintain their force, and some subordinate leaders kind of jump to the charge here. So that could have been, this unit gets depleted. This is the Union's strongest unit here. That would have been catastrophic. So a close call for the Union forces. Let's go now to our next event card. We get, oh, the colonel is down. These were both randomly picked in. These are ones that I didn't pick for either side. So now the Union can do the same thing to the Confederates here. Let's see what we want to do. They're essentially the same here. I was thinking Law's Brigade, that's on the other side of Big Round Top, but I think this is the greater threat. We want to try to neutralize this one here. So we're going to take this on Robertson's unit here. Now, Robertson's cohesion is a stated 5. He doesn't have support, so it's down to a 4. So a 4 or less, and they are okay. A 5 or a 6, and the colonel is down for them. Oh, Union hope flourishes here. Robertson falls in battle here, and they take a shaken result. Oh, that changes things quite a bit here. So helpful for the forces. 2 casualty. Can you imagine these are troops that, you know, Vincent and Robertson perhaps getting badly wounded in that nasty assault here on the top of Little Round Top. Vincent falls in battles, but his men withhold. Robertson falls, and his men after that charge are just exhausted, and they start to lose their nerve here. So let's go to our next card here. Fog of War. This is the randomness of war. Any kind of crazy thing can happen. Let's see what kind of a result we get here. 33. Fortunes of War Union. The Union player takes the Fog of War, the Fortunes of War marker. Okay. So the Union player is going to get the Fortunes of War marker, and he gets to hold it. We'll put it to the side here. This basically allows the re-roll of any die roll, offensive or defensive by either side, any dice roll. So we will keep this and try to use this judiciously as the Union forces. Let's go to our next card. Hurrah, hold. So this card basically simulates kind of a rise in morale here that we could apply to a unit. I'm tempted to put it on Vincent's 9-3 brigade that's already shaken because it could save it, but I don't think Robertson's going to come over that hill yet. And I think we might want to save it for a little bit. So I'm going to hold it, even though there's only 3 cards left and we lose it at the end of the turn. We're going to see what these other cards are. So we'll hold that for the moment. Let's see what we get. Rally round the flag. Play immediately. This actually, if we look, it says choose a brigade. All units of that brigade that are stacked with or adjacent to another unit from that brigade are eligible for this event. They may remove any shaken markers, even if adjacent to a Union unit. Then each eligible battleable unit can try to flee. We could get rid of the shaken marker on Robertson's brigade right now with this. So basically, after their leader's fallen, now they are regrouping and regathering. I think the other option, I'm tempted to use it for the default event to try to get Law's brigade back into the action gradually here, but I think it's more valuable now to get Robertson's brigade back up to full strength for the Confederate forces. So over here, Robertson made the heroic charge, pushed them back, lost their leader, got shaken, lost their nerve, but now a leader rises from the fray here, and they rally and get their nerve back. Now, there's no sense to continue with the rest of it because they are not battle-worn here, but Robertson's brigade back to full strength. 2 cards left. Let's go to the Union pick here. We get Hold. So this card is a card that we can hold as the Union forces, and again, we can use this as kind of a re-roll type of event. So we will put this off to the side. We actually know what's coming. We'll hold on for this for the Union forces. The other thought I had was to use a minimum movement, but I don't think we want to do that. So we're going to go to this last card, but I know what it is because the Union, the Confederate forces have not had their Corps activation card drawn yet. Sure enough, this is Longstreet's Corps gets activated here. So let's roll to see what happens here. This could be big for the Confederates because they might be able to take further advantage here, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We get a 6. So this is division priority 1 and 2, and Alexander, this is all the artillery. We don't have artillery, but let's go check out the division priority 1 and 2. There isn't a 2 for Longstreet here, so it'll just be number 1. Let's roll and see what we get. We get a 4, which is division group. So this is interesting. We can give them all an order here. And what do we want to do? Confederate forces are going to assault. We're going to do it. We're going to have Robertson push up the hill here and take the fire and go forward. So first, everybody's got to do the same attack, which is an attack basically. So we're going to have, we're going to move here one at a time. They have a movement of 5. We can do Law's force here, which is going to go 2 into this rocky terrain, and then 2 here, which is a 4. Now, Ward cannot fire defensively because they're already engaged with Robertson here. Likewise, we're going to do, this is 4 here for Law. 4 here. I do want to have this brigade try to push over the top of Big Round Top. They're going to lose. They're going to lose on this cohesion, but I still think that they get enough to push Ward out. They're so much stronger than him that I think it makes sense to do that attack. And we'll have this 2nd Brigade capture Big Round Top here and take that that hex there. Then, so that's our movement. No defensive fire from the Union forces. We are going to have Robertson's force here. They can always do 1 top. We're going to push boldly on here with Vincent's troops kind of in disarray at lower cohesion rating. We're going to have Robertson go up the hill, crest the top, and occupy Little Round Top, giving the Confederates control of it. They're going to have to take defensive fire from both of these units here. So let's start here with the defensive fire. We're going to have both units fire independently. Let's start with Vincent's stronger force here. Now they are 9, but they're shaken, so they're down to an 8. That gives us that. There are actually no combat shifts and no column shifts here on this fire whatsoever. So straight 8 on the results here, hoping for some good results to redeem themselves after getting pushed off the top of Little Round Top here. Vincent's brigade opens fire. Oh, that's terrible. It's so bad. 21. Well, the 1 is good. 21, though, on an 8. It's no effect. No effect. 1 plus 4 on the cohesion check is a 5, which is no effect either. Total fail by Vincent's brigade here. They haven't got it today here. 2nd Brigade's going to fire. Same thing, straight across on a 4 here. It's a little risky. Oh, wait. So, one thing I realized we can do as the Union forces, we can have Vincent's force use the Fortune of War chit here to re-roll that die. This feels like a big one, and a 21 is so bad. They got a lot of firepower here. We're going to burn it right away. We can't lose this hilltop without going through that. So Vincent's fire, regain, they reload, they fire again. 62 is much better here. We get a result of 8 on 62. Oh my goodness, they've really ramped it up here. This is a severe cohesion test. The result on the red die is a 3. Add on to the 4, which is a 7. So a severe test with a 7 is shaken, and optionally skedaddle 2. So Robertson forces, as they cross the top here, they are badly shaken now, and they could skedaddle 2. I think we might actually do that for them. Nah, let's have them stay where they are. Let's see how this goes. So the fortunes of war pay off though, however, they are shaken. Now we're gonna have Vincent's force open fire. They have a 4 here. Again, straight up, no modifications made on this one here. Second part of the brigade opens fire. Oh, 26. Oh, this is not gonna be good for them though. 26 on a 4 is no effect, and they get a 6 plus a 4 is a 10. It's FF, which is a firefight, which means that the Confederate forces can return fire here. I think actually we are going to do that. They would do that for sure. We do have the stand to it hold result here for the units that we could play if we don't like this fire combat result. So Robertson forces actually can return fire before they assault here. They have a strength of 7. And this is a wooded hex? No, it is not. I think it's just a rocky hex here. The woods aren't covering most of it there. So a 7, let's see what they get for a result here now. 53 on a 7. Well, that's going to be a tough cohesion test. We are going to use the stand to it, the hold marker right now. We're going to play this on Vincent's forces and force them to re-roll that die roll, because that would have been a tough result there. I think, actually, let's check it. 53. Yeah, they would have been pushed off. We're going to have them re-roll it here. Hope for better results here. 35, that is somewhat better. And a 6 is actually pretty good. 35 on a 7 is an easy cohesion test, not as effective. And then 6 plus 4 is 10, which is no effect. And they can return fire again. Vincent's force can return fire once more. Let's do it. Come on. So let's, Union forces here, fierce firefight. We'll roll again, this time a 4, an 11 with the 6. Oh, that's terrible. That's an 11 is one of the unique results here. So we have to calculate this out. When you get even numbers, when you get doubles on that, perceived enemy activity on a firing unit load here. Largest strength point unit in a target hex must add skedaddle 1 to the result if any other enemy unit is within 2 hexes of the target hex. There is. So they have to add a skedaddle 1 to the result. Perceived enemy activity. Basically, they get spooked here. So this is no effect with the firefight result, but the skedaddle 1 gets added to it. I've got a rules complexity to sort out. I'll be back. So my question here is, does the firefight result that allows this defender to return fire happen in addition to the skedaddle result from this combat event that's perceived enemy activity? So it's kind of, you sense there's something coming in from the flanks here. I'm going to go by the rules, which says you complete the entire result of the combat and then apply that result. So Robertson's force is going to fire back one more time at a result of 7 here on Vincent's other side brigade. I get a 16 and a 3. That should end this here. So 16, 3 and a 7. There's no effect here on Vincent's brigade. And now this perceived enemy activity. So basically, after all this firefight, Robertson's brigade gets spooked and they have to skedaddle 1 hex away. By rule, when a Confederate, actually they can't go here because that's adjacent. So right here, they've got to give up Little Round Top. So they tried to take it. Robertson's forces boldly vaulted forward here, but the skedaddle result means that they will not be able to assault. So pushed back by the Union forces here, thanks to spooking them, thinking there was some flanking activity coming on. So they are pushed back down off the top of Little Round Top. Still, 1 assault left for the Confederate forces here. So our last action of the 4 o'clock turn, Law's force is going to assault Ward here, and we know these sharpshooters, they can disengage. I'm not even going to calculate it because we're just getting out of here as a unit. We don't want to, no way we want to stand 2 on this attack. So we're going to have them skedaddle 2 away. By rule, they have to go east, so we're going to send them when there's a choice between multiple hexes. So we're going to go east 1 and then east 2, pushing them off of the Little Round Top, Big Round Top line of hills here, but keeps them away from that. Law's force is going to actively move forward. They're separated here from their counterparts who have yet to cover Big Round Top, but it does put into threat here the Little Round Top top of the hill here. And with that, the clock strikes 5 o'clock and our first round of action ends here. The Union forces will have potential reinforcements in the next round. Likewise, Confederate forces too. Both sides receiving some reinforcements in the 5 o'clock hour. The battle still very much up in the air. However, the Confederates making strong progress in the first hour, taking Big Round Top and threatening Little Round Top. Will the Union forces be able to regain their cohesion, strike back and hold the Confederates at bay, or will the Confederate success continue, leading them over the crest of Little Round Top to victory? I'll put a link to episode 2 as soon as it is ready. Thanks for watching, everybody.